First thing to say about it is it's a completely standalone film from the first, really. What we wanted to remain faithful to is the principles and the ethos of the filmmaking. You know, I'd obviously seen the first Monsters and, you know, was really blown away by the innovation of it. So we were excited to go and take that same principle of filmmaking and do it in our way. And so it's a brand new film. It's not a continuing narrative from the first. So it's a war film, essentially. But it follows a group of young soldiers, young men, young recruits from Detroit who are friends and lifelong friends, and from a town that I guess represents a lot of areas that young men are recruited from, and I think they feel there's not a lot for them in their hometown, and they join the army and they go off to the Middle East, where there is a fight against, in a way, a ground fight against an insurgency and people that are trying to sort of stand in the way of the Americans' bombing campaign on the creatures that they see as a sort of global threat. So the Americans are out there conducting a lot of airstrikes on these huge creatures that have got bigger from the first film, that are sort of size of skyscrapers, some of them, and sort of moving in herds. But our boys' fight is very much on the ground, and they confront the real realities of warfare, and they sort of see that firsthand, and also through their experience of being led through that by a sergeant who's done perhaps too many tours, who's suffering the real psychological effects of war.
The story that Tom's just described was a big factor in me kind of coming on board, and also I really wanted to work with Tom and also Johnny Harris. Again, I had the pleasure of working with Johnny a couple of times before, and I just think if you can, one should, and that was kind of it for me. I mean, and that's the way I assess everything. You know, I read the script and see who's kind of involved behind the camera, and it all seemed to fit for me on this one. It
was a year and a half of, well, a full year in post-production of visual effects, and that was just 7 days a week, endless days for the very small visual effects team. It's made with like a core visual effects team of about 5 to 7 people, really, and it's you know, guys who have worked on some great movies, huge movies, but have been maybe smaller cogs in giant machines, and they, you know, I think an opportunity on this was everyone owned the film. You know, it was a real pure collaborative effort. So they became our lead animators, lead compositors. You know, and they did everything, and they did it for real love of it. So it's not a kind of replicable financial model, this film, to how you make it again, but it is if you bring a certain group of filmmakers together who are that committed and cast, you know.
You know, obviously the monsters are there and they're present and they're tangible, but they actually, for me, they're mostly metaphorical, and it's about what they represent to the characters involved, and also what they represent to an audience. And I think that's, you know, the same with Gareth's movie as well. You know, there were monsters in it, but it was kind of a love story. And similarly with ours, there are monsters in it, but this is a war film about and a film about friendship and about you know, the human condition, really, and what can happen to you when you're placed in kind of an extreme environment, as these guys are.